night falls over Mayfair, one of London's wealthiest districts and one of its most targeted. A man sprints through the narrow streets, pursued by multiple undercover officers from a specialist Met Police team. His footsteps echo off the shop fronts, and as he stumbles, a luxury watch skids across the pavement, the kind routinely stolen in these high-value robberies that have surged across the capital in recent years. It took just 6 seconds. A grab, a struggle. And suddenly London's most feared watch thieves were exposed. But this wasn't luck, it was a trap months in the making. And the man sprinting through these alleyways had no idea he was about to unlock a criminal network stretching across continents. Imagine walking down a street, and within seconds someone rips a £20,000 watch straight off your wrist. Subscribe now, because knowing how these gangs operate might be the only thing that stops you from becoming their next victim. How did a street thief become the key to uncovering one of Europe's most organized luxury theft rings? To understand how this moment in Mayfair became possible, you have to look far beyond one chase, one suspect, or even one city. Over the last decade, luxury watch theft in England and Wales has risen sharply. Police and government crime data show more than 11,000 recorded watch thefts a year, with nearly 6,000 happening in London alone. A concentration so high that the capital quickly became known as Europe's hotspot for high-value street robberies. Districts like Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and Soho became prime hunting grounds, areas where wealthy residents, tourists, and late-night crowds created a predictable flow of targets. According to the Met Police, these locations weren't chosen by chance. They were mapped, watched, and monitored by criminals who understood the rhythms of London better than most Londoners. But the roots of the pipeline stretched much further. Over the years, groups linked to North Africa, particularly young men moving from Algeria through France and then into the UK, became a recurring presence in these investigations. Public reports from European police agencies describe how economic pressure, unstable job prospects, and exposure to established criminal networks across parts of France helped shape the routes and behaviors of some of these offenders. By the time they reached London, many were already connected to wider groups operating across European cities, networks built on fast communication, shared contacts, and the ability to move stolen goods across borders within hours. This wasn't the work of opportunists. It was a system, a pipeline that stretched from Algeria, through mainland Europe, and into the heart of London's luxury districts. And the officers tracking them knew exactly what they were dealing with. These weren't petty thieves. They were specialists, trained, connected, and working with precision. As investigators dug deeper, the same names began to surface, young men already familiar to officers for their early involvement in street-level robberies across London's wealthiest districts. Jakob Harket, age 21, was known to police for fast, high-value snatch robberies, often working near late-night venues. Reports described him as quick, discreet, and increasingly confident in targeting expensive watches. Mohammed Naas had previously drawn attention for similar offenses, frequently operating in busy nightlife zones. His movements matched several theft patterns, placing him within circles already monitored by specialist Met Police teams. Adel Mohammadi emerged in surveillance footage linked to multiple grab-and-run incidents. Officers noted his ability to blend into crowds before striking and disappearing within seconds, a tactic common in organized watch theft. Yanis Amry appeared in investigations involving scooter-assisted robberies, a method widely reported in London. Police connected him to groups using coordinated lookouts, rapid escapes, and targeted assaults on high-value victims. Together, their early tactics were simple but effective, watching people leaving restaurants, clubs, and hotels, striking fast, escaping on foot or scooters, and using sudden force to break a victim's grip. What made them stand out to the wider network was their skill, the ability to identify premium watches instantly, to move unnoticed, and to vanish before most victims even realized what had happened. But their confidence was growing too fast. And someone inside the Met Police was already paying attention. As the months passed, patterns across London's wealthiest districts grew impossible to ignore. police data showed a sharp rise in watch robberies around Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and Kensington, not scattered incidents, but coordinated activity that pointed to an organized group operating with increasing confidence. The case soon reached the desk of Detective Sergeant Andy Swindles, part of the Met Specialist Unit focused on high-value street robberies. His team began linking reports together, noting how the timing, locations, and escape methods showed consistency far beyond random attacks. Investigators classified the activity as stealing to order, targeted offenses carried out to fulfill requests from buyers already waiting in the UK and abroad. This wasn't spontaneous crime. It was a supply chain. The group expanded quickly. Public police reports describe how luxury pieces like Richard Mille, Rolex Daytona, and Patek Philippe watches, each worth tens or even hundreds of thousands, were being taken and moved overseas within days. Some traveled through networks in Europe, others were believed to be connected to contacts stretching into North Africa. Their methods grew more sophisticated with every operation. They conducted quiet surveillance of potential victims. They used encrypted messaging to coordinate movements. They mapped high-value streets at peak hours, studying when tourists, businessmen, and late-night crowds were most vulnerable. But inside the organization, someone grew careless. And one small mistake would change everything. If you care about staying ahead of dangers like this, hit subscribe now. Silence is how networks like these stay alive. London had become their crown jewel. By this point, the network was no longer just a group of street-level thieves. It was a full, cross-border machine. And the capital, with its wealthy districts, elite tourists, and constant flow of luxury timepieces, was the biggest prize of all. Public reports estimated that millions of pounds in stolen watches were now moving quietly across borders every year. Some vanished into secondary markets in Europe. Others resurfaced months later in North Africa, and a few never appeared again, absorbed into private collections or cut apart for parts. For the gang, this was the empire phase, the height of their confidence. They no longer waited for dark corners or empty streets. Now the attacks happened in broad daylight, right outside hotels, restaurants, and boutiques. Thieves riding scooters or e-bikes would strike with shocking precision, grab, twist, dislocate, disappear. Victims barely had time to breathe before their watches were gone. Behind the scenes, the financial engine kept growing. Public law enforcement briefings later revealed the scale. There were international resellers prepared to take high-end watches with their serial numbers filed off. There were fake ownership documents, forged repairs, and counterfeit receipts, anything to grease the movement across borders. And there were buyers in other European countries, known for paying a premium for stolen goods, turning London's chaos into quick profit. But while the gang grew bolder, the Met Police was quietly moving in the opposite direction, deeper, calmer, and more patient. During this period, they launched a long-term undercover operation, one of the most extensive efforts to tackle watch theft in the city. According to publicly accessible police statements, it involved a coordinated blend of covert officers, surveillance teams, and international partners. Officers trained to pose as wealthy tourists, wearing high-value watches that the gang couldn't resist. Surveillance units were hidden around Mayfair, inside parked cars, construction sites, and even behind false shopfront coverings. And specialized cameras were placed in strategic spots, mapping movement patterns, tracking repeat offenders, and recording the moments thieves thought no one was watching. But even the most successful criminal networks start to crack at the edges. Reports began to rise, not just from wealthy residents but from tourists who had flown in for the summer season, unaware of how quickly the gangs operated. Pressure mounted at the Home Office, demanding stronger responses to organized street theft. And as stolen watches resurfaced overseas, Interpol quietly became involved, linking thefts in London to handlers across multiple countries. Still, the gang pushed forward, unaware that every step they took was being watched more closely than ever before, and that their next move would lead them straight into the jaws of a trap they never saw coming. Because while the empire was growing, someone inside it had already begun making mistakes. Small ones. Forgettable ones. But together, they were about to expose the entire operation. Everything shifted on a cold October morning. After months of preparation, surveillance, and coordination between specialist units, the undercover bait operation officially began. This was the day investigators hoped would expose the faces behind London's most aggressive luxury watch robberies. 2 covert officers were deployed into a high-risk zone wearing what the public would later learn were high-value targets. A genuine £40,000 Rolex and a near-perfect replica of a £70,000 Patek Philippe. The purpose was simple: to become the kind of bait no thief in this network could ignore. For 4 long hours, nothing happened. Just the rhythm of London traffic, tourists drifting in and out of shops, and officers maintaining the illusion of casual movement while surveillance teams monitored every shadow. But beneath the calm, tension was rising. Everyone knew the gang watched for specific behaviors: hesitation, distraction, and confidence. The undercover officers displayed all of them. Then, just after noon, Jakob Harket appeared. He followed the officers at a distance, unaware that he was stepping into a fully controlled environment, a circle of covert teams, plainclothes units, and marked vehicles waiting just out of sight. To him, it was just another opportunity. To investigators, it was the moment they had been building toward. He closed the distance, moved into position, and attempted the robbery. But the plan didn't unfold the way he expected. The officers reacted faster than he anticipated, and the failed attempt exposed something investigators had not yet seen from Harket: panic. Sudden, uncalculated, unmistakable panic. Within seconds, backup teams poured into the area. Cameras captured the chaos: pedestrians startled, officers converging, and Harket trying to break free before being forced to the ground. But the arrest triggered something else. Movement. 3 additional men, previously unidentified, were spotted nearby, watching the operation unfold. One of them, Naas, was caught almost immediately after attempting to flee. The other 2, later identified through public police disclosures as Adel Mohammadi and Yanis Amry, managed to escape in the confusion, slipping into the crowd before surveillance teams could lock their positions. But the biggest revelation wasn't the failed robbery. It wasn't the panic. And it wasn't even the arrests. It was what the officers found when they secured the suspects' phones. Because inside those devices was evidence that would shatter the gang's secrecy and expose connections far wider than anyone expected. The arrest sent shockwaves through London's luxury districts, but it was only the beginning. As officers secured the suspects, they began combing through phones, messages, and digital traces. Public records later confirmed these devices contained searches for high-value watches, transaction details, and contact networks, all pointing to meticulously planned thefts. Investigators from the Met, working alongside European law enforcement agencies, traced the suspects' connections across France, revealing links to criminal groups operating out of Algeria. Public reports and government statements confirmed that these networks had established a transcontinental pipeline, moving stolen luxury watches from Europe into London's high-value districts. The courtroom at Snaresbrook Crown Court became the stage for the unraveling of the empire. Jakob Harket pleaded guilty, admitting his role in a series of coordinated thefts. Mohammed Naas claimed coincidence, but the court, relying on evidence obtained through lawful Met investigations, found him guilty. Sentences were handed down. Harket received 2 years. Naas was sentenced to 3 years, combining for a total of 5 years imprisonment. Yet the story did not end there. 2 suspects managed to evade capture, remaining wanted internationally, with their names circulating across Interpol alerts. Public reaction was immediate. Media outlets dubbed the operation the Rolex Rippers, and reports highlighted how quickly a network once thought untouchable had been dismantled through careful surveillance, forensic analysis, and international cooperation. For the first time, the public could see the scale of the network and understand the consequences of organized crime in London's most affluent districts, a stark reminder that luxury, greed, and crime often collide with real-world consequences. The dismantling of this network sent ripples far beyond the courtroom. London's luxury districts, from Mayfair to Knightsbridge, began reviewing safety measures, installing increased surveillance, and coordinating closely with the Met's dedicated luxury theft unit. Tourists, once confident to display high-value watches, became wary, cautious of their surroundings. Public records indicate insurance premiums for luxury items surged, reflecting a tangible shift in perceived risk. The authorities were clear: this operation had only scratched the surface of a much larger, transnational network, still under investigation by Interpol and European law enforcement agencies. The human toll was equally profound. Victims experienced trauma, shaken by sudden, violent thefts. Officers risked their lives to protect the public, their dedication spotlighted in official reports. As one Met spokesperson noted, the operation reminded Londoners that organized crime is not abstract. It hits close to home. They didn't just steal watches, investigators emphasized. They stole people's sense of safety. One failed robbery had exposed an entire criminal chain spanning continents, proving that even the most confident and sophisticated networks could crumble from a single error. Greed, danger, and recklessness came with real consequences, and no one involved escaped the cost. If this story has opened your eyes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this.